everybody, how are you? Just realised I haven't got any jewellery on today, but it's so hot, isn't it? It's so hot, and there we go. I'm all wonky, aren't I? That's better. Anyway, hello everybody, how are you? Hello Sue, she's first in the house tonight. So tonight's just an extra tutorial so that for those of you that want to make the cabochon like this, you can do. It's not obligatory, you can still make the tutorial, but you'd have to use a different cabochon instead. And I know some of you, since my previous one on cabochons, you've been out and bought some watercolours and things. So I thought, let's have a little paint along together, whether or not you do it with me now or whether or not you do it a little bit later on. So I know it won't appeal to everybody, but I'd love to know how many of you this appeals to, and I'd love to see what you make as well. Now, just first up, just to say, I am not a trained artist, okay? I go to an art group every week, which I absolutely love. I'm still learning myself. So these are things that I've picked up along the way myself. And you may find better ways of doing things. So I leave it to you, but hopefully I give you a couple of pointers. So let's go on the overhead. Okay, so let's zoom in a wee bit. Let's talk you through the materials. Now, I like to use a fine liner. It's 0.1, but you can use whatever you've got. They're Staedtler, I think that's how you pronounced it. I really like those. You're going to need a glass dome. I am running out of stocks on these, so I will replenish my stocks. This is the one that I've got in this one. That's a 40mm, so it's pretty big. That one's a 25mm, which is that size there. Okay, so that's Thursday's project, which is going to be over a couple of weeks. So you are going to need a pencil to draw the image first. Then we're going to fine tip outline it. Then you are going to need a fine brush. This one is a round number 1. If you are going to do the painting of the Mod Podge on top, that's Mod Podge, you're going to need a really old brush, your watercolour paints, whichever paint you choose, and some water and a cloth, possibly a rubber. Now I bought this from Superdrug, and I'm just going to move my beading out of the way because I don't want to get it wet. So I like to wet my watercolours. Now I quite like these little palettes, but it's up to you. Watercolours come in so many different ways. All I would say is if you've got some already, use what you've got, you know, have a go, see how you get on. But so we'll just pop those to one side and let's get on with the drawing. So I don't know if you could see that, that's one I did earlier to have a practice, just to make sure I could still do it, if I'm perfectly honest with you. You know, there's always that pressure, isn't there, when you're online. So what I do first of all is actually draw around the cabochon that you're going to be working on in pencil. Okay, and so this is the rose that we're aiming for, so sort of find your rough centre point and just mark it. Okay, I'm going to try and zoom in a wee bit more because I'm conscious that my pencil is quite light in colour. I think that's a bit better. Let's just readjust that. Okay, so I'm going to start off with just like almost like a little figure of 8 in the middle, and then after that I'm going to do a curve round one side, and then I'm going to do a curve around the other side. Now with all of these, none of mine link in, they're purely random, so I'm just having a quick look at what I've got here. So I'm going to do I'm just looking at my other piece there. So I'm going to do a big sweep round here for one of the petals, then a sweep round here, and a curve that goes round here. So I'm just kind of filling in the rose petals as I go, and bring one round here. So as you can see, we've got a couple of gaps, so I'm going to bring, so as you can see, they don't actually overlap. It's more of a gesture, really. There we go. So it's nothing complicated, quite easy. So you've got the middle bit, hook round there, and then just some random lines around it to gesture the look of a rose rather than anything very in-depth. Can you hear me okay, Sue? Just let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. So let's just go on this one here, and I think it's really quite nice to add some leaves into the equation as well. So for the leaves, I'm just going to actually make a bit of a curve around here, and then I'm going to put the top leaf on. Now I'm not liking that top leaf, so I'm going to rub that out. This is so cool, this little rubber I've got. It's actually battery operated, but I won't turn it on while I'm on. I like a bit of a point to my leaves. And then we'll have a little leaf out here and a leaf at that side as well. Let's just make that a little bit thicker. So if you're like me, you might find it easier to turn the paper round so that you actually get a feel for doing the other side. So I'm going to make some leaves here. Doesn't have to be any particular shape. I'm not liking the top of that. Can you actually, can't even see it, can you? Sorry about that. Right. Let's just rub that out and let's start again so you can actually see what I'm doing. Right. So I'm going to turn it on its side. There we go. That's the only thing in having it quite zoomed in, is if I move out the way too much, you won't actually see anything. Now, I always think working the rule of threes or odds, okay? Pictures and beads always look much better in odds. Now, I'm going to turn it round that way. So once you're happy with the design, you can then outline it in some black ink. So we're going to use our Stabler pen. Would help if we got it the right way up. And just go over those lines that you've just done. And what it helps to do is to actually give it some extra accents. Doesn't matter if you go slightly off-piste, because we're going to rub out those lines. First of all, I should mention the fact that I'm working with watercolour paper. I bought mine from Amazon. I bought a pad which lasts absolutely ages. Let's just turn that round that way. But for those artists among you, if you've got any top tips on what works for you with your watercolour, any paper, pens, what paints you like to use, there we go. So I'm quite happy with how that's come out. I'm going to actually rub out the extra bit of pencil. Now the other type of rubber that's fantastic is a putty rubber. They are brilliant. I don't like the normal rubbers because I always find that they just make a horrible smudge, really horrible smudge. So I don't know if you can see this very well. So this is my watercolours. Do you know what? I'm going to work this one in slightly different colours. I'm going to put a bit of green and a bit of blue in this one. So where's my water? So I think I'm going to start with a bit of sea green at the bottom. So obviously the thicker you have the paint, the bigger the colour, bolder the colour. I'm just going to actually dab that on my kitchen roll, and I just want some little bits of shading in there. So I'm just going to put some dabs of this colour, and then I'm going to wet my brush, dab it on the tissue, and just spread some of this watercolour out. Like so. So it's up to you how sort of bold you want it. So now I'm going to add, so there you go, let's just turn that up a little bit. I'm going to have a go at some blue now. I think I put too much water on my palettes, but that's okay. So I'm going to dab that on there so that it's not so watered down on here. I'm going to build in the blue with the green. Just put some dabs around here. Okay, brush that off, pop it on the water on my kitchen towel, and let's spread this out. So what I like to get is some different colouring, you know, some different shading there. You can also use watercolour pencils as well. So I just work within those lines that I did. So let's just tip that up a little bit. Now I wonder if I can just put an extra bit of depth in there with a slightly deeper colour. I might completely ruin it, but so let me show you what colour I'm using. So these are the colours I've used. That sea green, the blue, and now the dark blue. I'm not going to go for much. Just a few little dabs in there. Wash my brush, pat it on the kitchen towel, and just blend that in with the other colours. There we go. So let's just show you a bit closer up. So I'm hoping that will dry a bit, you know, sort of blending in the colours. I'm just going to put a bit more green in there just to make a bit of difference on the shading. There we go. Right, so the leafy colours, we're going to do the leaves next. I've got a different palette for the leaves. I haven't wet this one yet. So again, just get a nice bit of colour, dab it on my kitchen roll. So when I say dab it, I'm just literally dabbing that on there, and that is just to get rid of all the excess water. Right, so I want a bit thicker colour, so I've just popped my brush in the palette. and it's still thick enough, bold enough just to pop around there. There we go. And might just have a little bit of brown just to pop on the stem of the leaves. There we go. So that's our first one done. I'm going to leave that to dry, and whilst we're leaving that to dry, let's do a smaller one with a different colour. Let's just have a look if we've got any more of you joining. Oh, lovely, I've got more of you. How lovely. It just takes a little while sometimes for all of the comments to come up. Hello Gemma, hello Kim. You can hear me fine. You can't see? Oh, was that a moment ago when I went off camera? Hello Emma, hello Carol. Sue said her pencil is going to be busy this week. Looks good, not sure mine will turn out that way. Do you know what, Sue? It's just literally, it is practice. But as you can see, there's not a huge amount of sort of strokes. It's very quick. It's so relaxing. Yes, a moment ago I was. I'm so sorry. Right. So let's just push that to one side and let's go for a smaller one like this, and this time we'll try slightly different background as well. So this is your 25mm. Now don't forget, if you missed it, I did another one on sunflowers, a full tutorial as well a little while ago. Let's get that envisioned so you can see what I'm actually doing. So find your centre point, okay, and we're just going to do a little figure of 8 in the middle. Then we're going to hug it one side, then we're going to do a bigger hug the other side, and then we're going to just curve these round, and they're just literally, as I said, they're just little gestures. That, oh, not happy with that. Gonna rub that out. Honestly, these are amazing, these. So it's got this little, does it work? That's the question. I think I've broken it. I dropped it the other day, but it does actually buzz. It does actually rub out for you, which everybody thought was really cheaty, but I think it's brilliant. Right, okay, so let's go there, let's go round there, do a gesture there, let's just, there we go. So nothing complicated there. On the smaller one, I have literally just done one little leaf branch. Now what you can always do as well, but let's actually ink it first. That's an idea, isn't it? But you can also do, if you want to, a watercolour wash in the background. It's not going to have such an impact with this one because, of course, it's a smaller picture. Now, the other thing you could do as well is, if this is for your bead embroidery, you could always just pop your initials in the corner so it sort of individualises it. It looks like a piggy nose, doesn't it? Oh, right, let's just refresh. Now, what I was going to say was you can do a little wash in the background. So say, for example, on this one, we're going to do a pink one, but we just maybe pop a sea green colour in the background, is we just pop a little bit of colour in the background, just very light brushing, wash it off, dab it, and then just have a slightly wet brush and just thin that down. Just wet the brush a bit more. Now this is actually, what I'm doing on the flowers is actually pretty much wet on dry. Some people actually like to wet their entire watercolour, so this is only just, do you know, this is just a very small drop in the ocean as to what watercolour is. But you know, if you like it, you can look into it a little bit more. I don't know if you can see, but that's a slight green. So let's go for some pink, shall we? So there's my pink. Let's just brush that off. Let's do a few little dots in there, and then swish it, tap it, pat it, and then go in and just dilute that. Now you could just use one colour if you want to and go all the way around there, so it's darker in the middle, lighter on the outside, like so. But I think we'll add a bit more interest in it than that, so let's add a little bit more colour. So I've got this pinky purple, and where should we put the pinky purple? Should we, let's add a few dabs around, and do you know what, let's blend in another colour. Let's do a purple one as well, a bit purple. Let's scatter that in as well, and then dip your brush, and then let's just dilute it and spread it around a little bit. Now, a wonderful tip that someone gave me in art group, because we have people that do demonstrations every now and then, is if you put your brush in the water, okay, just take off the excess water, and you think, do you know what, I want that a bit lighter, then what you can do is you go in with your brush and lift out the colour, dab it onto your paper towel, brush it out, just gently brings it out, dampen it again. I will have a look at your comments in a sec. So it's almost like rubbing out, but it does take a bit of doing. So let's, what other colours should we put in? Let's see what happens if we put a bit of red in. Where should we put the red? Let's put the red in the middle. A bit too much water there. There we go, it's got quite a nice little, it looks like a smiley face though, doesn't it? Do you know that I think that's the only thing I'll be able to see in that now, is that little smiley face. When you do a bee, how do you make it look fluffy? Fluffy. She likes this. Sue likes this, so she's going to definitely try and do it. When you say the bee, and I try and make it look fluffy, do you mean in the watercolour? Like I did in that one? Do let me know. Right, so let's do the leaf, bit of green. Do you know, if ever you've got any detached sales going on, I went to one with Francis W, and the local one, and this little palette I got for £2, partly used, but you can pick up such little bargains, you know, that people that decide not to do any more. Right, so just lifting that out a little bit. You could always add a bit of green in there as well if you want to. Be bold. Right, okay, and should we put a bit of brown? A bit of brown on the leaf. Do you know, things that really took me ages when I was doing watercolour was knowing how much paint to actually put on your, you know, how much paint to actually put on your brush, how to get a more intense colour. You know, these are all the sorts of things that you literally just learn as you go along. So that's the other one that I painted. So the good thing is, you know, you can practically do any rose to fit your colour palette that you want. Right, so how do I get it looking fluffy? I'm not sure, Emma. It was a little while ago that I did that, but I do like to blend in watercolour and ink, and that seems to make it pop a little bit more. Right, okay, so let's go back to this one. Where are we? So that's dried really nicely now. And you could always put a little bit of background colour on it, but I'm actually quite happy with that. Hello Christine, thank you for joining. Right, I'm going to cut it out with my scissors. I have got a Stanley knife, but I haven't used it. It's a new one, so I'm not taking any risks. Right, so I'm just going to cut round this. Do you know what? I'm just going to zoom out a little bit more, because I think I keep going off camera. There we go. I think a scalpel is quite a good idea. However, you've got to work with what you've got, haven't you? Right, let's take that off. Gosh, my cutting out is terrible. Right, I rather like that. I like the bluey greeny colours on that. I might use that one for the tutorial in the week. Let's just pop that on a little mat so that I don't actually get this all over the place. That's my old Mod Podge. I want my new Mod Podge. Now, I got this from the works for £6. Absolute bargain. So this is what you do to seal it. Don't use your best, whatever you do, do not use your best paintbrush. Right, I'm using my old one. Right, so make sure it's actually sealed. Now, try not to keep rubbing your artwork too much. Just brisk over it quite quickly, because what you don't want to do is to start smudging all of those lovely colours. Now, normally what I do is a coat. Oh, I haven't managed that. It's good to see if I can scrub that out. So normally I would do one coat of that, let it dry, and then pop the dome on the top. So what you would do to finish off once that's dry is paint the dome with the Mod Podge, pop it on the top, and just leave it like that and for an hour or so to seal, so the glue will come off. but I'm going to leave that to set first of all to seal it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me just recap. So that's what we're going to be making on Thursday. That's the same size as that one, 40mm. Still got some of those left. That was the smaller one, and that was the little smiley face flower. It really does look like a smiley face, doesn't it? Maybe make your figure of 8 slightly obscure so it doesn't look like 2 eyes and a mouth. So yeah, let's go on. So I do hope you enjoyed it, but if you want to see the full tutorial on actually how to use the Mod Podge to actually set them into what's called a bezel as well, if you don't want to do bead embroidery but you want to put it into jewellery, have a look on my YouTube channel because it's all on there from a few weeks ago, Beads by Verchiel. So I'm going to love you and leave you, just refresh it just to make sure I haven't missed any of your questions, and I'll see you Thursday. So we will go through the bead embroidery on Thursday. Okay, you take care. Bye.